Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are discussing Dr. Mirabilis Roger Bacon. Roger Bacon is a great scientist. Roger Bacon was born in the city of Ilchester in the county of Somerset in the early 1200s in England. Speaking of England, he got his master's at and was briefly a lecturer at Oxford University. Keep in mind, Dr. Mirabilis is posthumous. Later, he was a lecturer of different subjects at the University of Paris, where he served as the lecturer of grammar, logic, geometry, etc. And a few years later, which involved some political turmoil inside Oxford, we have his next era, when he was a friar of the Franciscan part of the church. And a few years later, he also became the person to write his magnum opus, the Magnus OPUS, the Great OPUS. We shall discuss that later, but let's discuss some more events. He was sentenced to house arrest due to certain political happenings and was not able to continue many of his activities. He returned strong nonetheless, but remember, in those days, the authority of the church fathers ruled supreme, and so he had a lot of difficulty. He reformed theology to focus more on the contents of the Holy Bible, which was a proto-Protestant movement. The Protestant movement was spearheaded by Martin Luther. He requested science be introduced in the church curriculum, which was, but for a short time before it was removed. Now let's discuss the contents of the Opus Majus, which was a treatise on mathematics, optics, alchemy, and astronomy as well, not to mention theology. He intended to reform the medieval university curriculum, and Opus Majus was not a huge volume, it was just the preface. He criticized the Julian calendar and talked of his as an intolerable, laughable mess, and laughed at it, basically. Anyways, he also criticized one of his contemporaries we have covered, Albertus Magnus, and co. for being too bookish and not tending too much towards experimentation. Also, let's just remember that he also worked with the physiology of eyes in the Opus Majus. He was the first European to write the formula for gunpowder. Gunpowder was influential in the coming decades. It still is. He purported to have some sort of secret of secrets from Arab texts, but we now know that that was just a publicity stunt. Anyways, he also mused about in the field of alchemy and astrology, which annoyed his fellow friars a lot. Also, he also imagined a future where aircrafts and submarines existed. That is cool because these two things exist in the present day. Now let's move on to everybody's favorite, linguistics. He started off with grammar, discussing grammar to great extent. Grammar was his main subject, right? He talked about the usefulness of grammar in practicalities. He talked about how you could use it in trade and so on and so on. It was a really ingenious way of discussing grammar. He also spoke Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and Arabic, as he believed these were important to learn as a friar. There's various apocryphas surrounding him, including the fact that he had necromantic hair. Yeah, that sounds freakish, thank you. Also, he had a bit of reputation of a magician in the early modern era, which shouldn't happen. He was a genuine mind, genuine genius. His unusual fascination with astrology, etc., they did not help to prove him as a normal person who just was that genius. And tickets for halfpenny, as he was the subject of an Elizabethan comedy, very successful one, The Honorable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bongay. Also, his perception today in media is as a popular science revolutionary sort of guy. Anyways, he was not an isolated genius though. His intellect was rivaled by his contemporaries, and it showed that how much intellect was still there in the Middle Ages. He rose through the ranks to become a great intellectual of his time, inspiring people to come for decades to come. He has appeared in pop culture as a character in many future books and movies. Future, that means future when, of course, he was alive. He has appeared in many of those things, in fact. That, my friends, is Frier Roger. Whew, that was a wild ride about all of it. Anyways, while he is not radical as he seems, he's still a freaking legend that I honestly salute. Thanks for your support of the channel, and thanks for all of the support you always keep giving us. Thank you once again. Our previous episode was ALBERTUS MAGNUS, and our next episode is going to be Theodoric. Anyways, thank you, bye.